kids. Them baby kids.
That means you were baby kids' friend.
Yeah.
I'm baby's nephew. I'm baby's nephew.
You
That's
got in
funny.
trouble with us.
Yeah. Yes.
Greetings, peace, and power, family. Welcome to another episode of Vocal Dialect Podcast. I am Knowledge Born 7. I'm here with my partner in crime, Kenwado Moore, as well as the Street Law Soldiers. We have the General Tashaka Sankofa, as well as our Brother Gerald Moore. We have a special topic tonight. A very interesting topic is going to be politics in religion. And we're going to have our brother Charles, as well as our brother Victor Booth. They're going to be discussing the topic. They're going to give their summary or essay on it as we ask them questions, and we're going to get right into it. How you brothers doing today? How's everybody doing?
Great.
Hey, God.
All right, all right. Well,
Yes.
I want you guys to take just a couple of minutes. Victor, I'm gonna allow you to go first, and after that, brother Charles, I want you guys to tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from.
All right, so I'm a young man with a plan. My name is Victor Booth. I'm a Washingtonian. My family goes back to the city in the 1880s. We were a prominent family in Georgetown, started a Catholic church that allowed Black folks to sit where they wanted to sit in the church. Um, Everything was restricted to our people. So that's a little bit on my father's side. My mama's side, they were all Catholic. DC is mainly a Catholic town. Most of them are light-skinned colored people. And we know why, because there was a white man in the wood pile. Um, Grew up in DC, grew up in Southeast, went to McKinley High School, came out, worked for major, organizations within this government, NASA, worked at Hughes Network Systems, did satellite communications, a lot of stuff. Now I work for a large financial firm. I'm a consultant, a real estate agent, broker, mover, shaker in the game, and got two kids, recently divorced and happy. But my hobby is learning history, understanding history, and currently I'm a warrior scholar in Dr. Shiva's organization. It's called Truth, Freedom, and Health, and I encourage a lot of people to go there, where we elevate your consciousness, to get your mind off the plantation, to look for solutions, to be active locally. And right now, we're the only opposition to the Trump administration on the planet. He has the support of all our media, military, you name it. And he's just an actor, but the ruling class has taken over our government. In other words, we've allowed our country to be taken over by some wicked people, as Minister Charles would always say, the evil. So if we're just we're not outnumbered, but we're out organized. So that's my spill on the day. But I'd like to talk about some of the politics and tricks in religion and and what role it played in keeping us on the plantation.
Okay, all right, brother Charles, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from.
Oh my goodness. That is after hearing Dr. Booth tell his story, I don't know that I need to say much of anything. I am the son of Carlton and Nancy Sullivan. Carlton is from Gadsden, Alabama, my father, and my mother, Nancy, from Youngstown, Ohio. They met there in the 1950s. My father was in that region, he was considered the Sam Cooke of his time. And it would lead many, many years later. My mother was, at the time they met, was a vocal performance student at Kent State University. So they definitely passed that on to their progeny. If you're in my family and you can't sing, you're probably not really genetically related. Everybody sings. And it's an amazing thing. And they passed that on to me. I grew up in a house that was full of spiritual uh, information being bantered around. I was in a house that was full of discussion about um, eclectic things. It was very broad, everything from music to politics. Of course, at that time, being a child of the 1960s, those things associated with civil rights, human rights, and so on, but also a desire for education. My father then finally got a position at the National Institute of Health and moved the family to Washington, D.C., where I lived in Northeast DC, Trinidad Avenue. If anybody knows about Trinidad, they called it Vietnam when Vietnam was going on. So, but it wasn't despite that, the challenge to live where I lived, groomed me for the life that I was to lead. After we lived in Northeast DC, my father moved us to a little town called Palmer Park, where I was a contemporary as Dr. Sankofa and Dr. Gerald of Sugar Ray Leonard, who lived down the street and around the corner. Just giving a little bit of the journey. But long story made short, after finishing high school, went to Morgan State University, where I was a student in the Joseph Banks Eubanks vocal studio. I was a um, vocal performance opera major, and then I sang with the world-renowned Morgan State University Choir, and then went on to Peabody after that, and then began an operatic career. But married young, had a whole herd of children, and made the decision that traveling and being away from my family wasn't the best thing. I then embarked on a corporate career. From there, in the midst of that corporate career, began to be involved in ministry work, and then while still doing the corporate career, went back to singing. So in the last 20 years, I've sung around this country and outside of the country about 4,000 concerts. I've also done ministry work all over the country, and in particular, I've done a lot of community work. I've spoken to elementary schools, child care development centers, senior centers. Hundreds of them. Mostly in the Mid Atlantic and the Midwest. Some out west as well. But I would say the bulk of my adult life, despite doing corporate work, ministry work, and music work, has really been developed to outreach. To try to touch the lives of all generations, our infants, I mean our toddlers, our youth, our young adults, and our adults and our seniors, to try to share something that might empower them to understand the greatness that has been placed in them before they were even born, so that we can in this time stand up and be the trees of righteousness that we were meant to be. That means doing things right, handling things right, living the kind of life that perpetuates the positive things that were, placed in us before we were born. So, married, 9 children, 9 grandchildren, and I count myself as one of the happiest men that has ever walked the face of this earth.
All right, all right. We thank both of you guys for that. I want to go ahead, Ken.
No, I was gonna ask him, brother Charles. So, what do you think the politics are behind religion? Our topic for the night.
What do
Well,
I
I have.
think? Oh, go ahead. No, no. I'll wait.
Go ahead. I got a real quick summary. You can answer Brother Ken's question right off the top of my head. Throughout history and religion and politics, they deeply intertwined. Dealing with ancient rulers and so-called divine authority to legitimize power, from starting all the way back from ancient Kemet, which is Egypt, dealing with pharaohs, all the way to the Roman Empire, through the medieval parts of Europe, dealing with the popes, the kings, so-called kings, and the battles of dominance and prominence. While Islam unified faith and the government and the governance under certain powers. So the Reformation and Enlightenment challenges of the church control, leading to secular states and religious freedoms. That'll bring us right back into Kinwato question, as far as dealing from the modern era. Religion remains a political force. What he just asked you, Brother Charles, you can go ahead and attack it first. What to you are the politics in religion?
Well, of course, I was honored when you, uh, you know, uh, indicated you would want me to be a part of such an amazing forum that you have to provide empowering and enlightening information to the masses. Because, there's a spiritual saying that says, I would not have you ignorant. And with that in mind, to approach this topic is it's so broad and so all encompassing that it's kind of hard to, let's say, drive it down. But I do have some thoughts that I'd like to frame it with. But within it, there are a lot of tentacles. So we say the politics behind religion, but maybe, in my opinion, a different way to say it is the religion behind politics. So, in framing it how it's supposed to be, because in order to understand what something is, you have to be able to define it as good or bad. You have to have a framework by which to judge something. So if my mother hugs me and kisses me, but not in an inappropriate way, and encourages me, then I have a feeling that this is good, and it encourages me to feel good about myself and to move in a positive way. But if my mother takes a baseball bat and beats me on a regular basis, and even if I survive it, I may be extremely harmed. So I need to have a framework in order to understand something as to what is good or what is not good. I've got to have some sense of that. So if I'm thinking about religion, the religion behind politics, I now have to understand, well, or why would there be a need for politics? And what we know is that once there are people occupying this earth, when there's enough people, matter of fact, it doesn't really take many, there's going to be some kind of way that people are going to need to get along. And whether you have a formal written document, there's going to be rules, spoken or unspoken, about how you need to function. So if I'm framing this based on the religion behind politics, the first thing I have to think of is what would govern it. And there's a saying that says, he that ruleth over men must be just. So, first rule of governing, if I'm looking at it, is you can't govern others, a community, a town, or anything until you can govern yourself. So in today's world, the people that are running politics can't govern themselves in the kinds of ways that are moral and ethical and so on. If you can't do that, you can't govern people. But the religion that is behind that is in the same condition as the people that are doing the governing. So the first tenet behind it is, for ruling, you can't rule anything until you can govern yourself. The second thing that I would frame it with is the thought that um, governing, you've got to be just, you've got to be balanced, you got to be reasonable, you got to have a modicum of fairness to go with it. So today, the politics does not fit that image. And again, the mother that loves, the mother that bruises. But what's driven that is the religious part, which is of equal of an equal imbalance, a lack of fairness, and unjust. The third part is that there's a saying that says we should try to find peace with all men as best as possible. Or how can two walk together lest they be agreed? Well, if the things that are happening are not creating some type of conformity to unity, something that helps out every person, that looks out for the strong as well as the weak, that looks out for the married woman as well as the widow, that looks out for the child that has the father versus the one that doesn't, um, um, and the ability to agree on those things. And I use this example, and then I'll be finished with just my overview. Because again, what I'm saying, it's the religion behind the politics that's driven it, because it's really based on the realm of religion is based on the power and however anybody says the name, the power of the divine, the power of God, and people understanding that there's been transferred to manpower. That people want to be a dominant or a god, but someone who is an ultimate authority has the accountability in power to be the person to care and make sure that all are well. So you can either use that to love and to care, or you can use it to harm. So I've prefaced it by this point. If the religion is based on the power, what's that real power? That power should be love and not lynching. It should be love and not lessening each of us of our resources while they fill their pockets. If that's the case, the thing that will drive us is the understanding of care that is based on, regardless of how, in other words, taking away the unbalanced, the unreasonable, the lack of fairness. A child is standing in the middle of the street and they're kind of fair in their skin set. You can't tell whether they're really light skinned black, whether they're Latino, whether they're, something. They could even be a Caucasian kid with a tan or whatever. They're in the middle of a street and a car is coming. Do we ask the kid before we ask it to, before we yell to get out of the way? Do we say, "Are you Muslim? Are you a Buddhist? Are you Hindu? Are you following of Messianic Judaism?" Or these kind of things? Or do we qualify it first, or do we just see a child in distress and want to help it? We must be driven by a morality that cares first, without examining based on my ability to control. Because if you're, let's say you're someone that doesn't like black, you see the black kid, you may want it to get run over. And if you're someone that's in today's world, where it seems that ICE wants to put everybody that doesn't look like ICE in a lockup of some sort, well, that's cool. But if you're not that, then it's okay for you to walk freely, when that person that's walking freely may in fact be the immigrant that's there illegally, and the person that they snatch up is not. So we have to look at that child in the street and desire to care for it and to take care of it, simply because it's a child that needs care, it needs love. And this is what should be driving our religion, and that should be fueling that spiritualness should be fueling what happens in politics. But in fact, based on where we are today, the religion that drives the politics is one that is more about perpetuating itself for power rather than the purpose of preserving life.
Okay, Brother Vic, go ahead. Attack that question, my brother Vic.
Yeah, I agree. I think the church is its only mission is to perpetuate power, profit, and control. And you can see that just as you travel in any city in this country, the doors are closed. They're not open to help the poor, the naked. As Jesus said, his mission was to feed the hungry and clothe the naked. So a lot of what we see now, and what we've all said, that the church has profited from the enslavement, especially on my family side, how they preferred the light skin over the dark skin. In the Bible, they talk about Jesus and insinuate that maybe he was black. So to end that argument, you can say, was he a Greek? Was he a Roman? And if they say no, then what else could he have been in that time frame? So that ends the argument. But years ago, I read a book by a guy named Robert DeCoy, and it was called The Nigger Bible. He wrote it in '67. And he asked that Black folks seek a God of their own. Most of these religious systems that we've been seeing, if you call it, Judeo-Christian, these three Abrahamic religions have all enslaved us. The Europeans have colonized our history. Black people were worshiping Christianity before they gave it a name. We know this. So I agree with the minister here that you have to have a framework where people have a set of rules to say, we adopt these rules. And what we saw in African cultures and the American cultures is that religion was born out of those cultures. Because you have a high culture, then you say, hey, don't commit adultery. You learn the do's and don'ts. As man evolved, you see what came out of it. And then that became what we call religion today. But what we see also is that these religions have been co-opted by people who don't like us, especially Black people. I'm reminded of a story that Ross Ben out of Philadelphia talked about how in 1740, Rome was conquered by the Goths. These Eastern Europeans beat the crap out of them. They defeated classical Rome. And so as it was told by him, he said that the resurrection of Rome at that time was done by these Schwarzeneggers or niggers that restored Rome in 1100 by Saint Maurice and the Liebens of Saint Maurice, but they call them Schwarzenegger. These guys seeded Germany. They were the first heroes of Germany before there was a Hitler. That's why you see all these brunette Europeans. And in that time, in the 1100s, Rome got a hold of those Goths and called them Slavs or slaves. And those people came along and said, we slaves now. We gave up. They got their asses kicked. And what the Romans did was push the Black Madonna and Child on those people. Put that on them. And what they did was they co-opted Rome. Because Rome at that time, you remember, Rome was an empire. They didn't appreciate Christianity. They later brought it in. And they said they couldn't keep fighting everybody. They couldn't fight the so-called Jews that they call themselves today. There was no Jew at all. So there were Hebrews. So the brothers that defeated the Goths were Hebrew. You can't call them Jews. They were by blood or by oath. This is history. So when they defeated Rome, they were murdered by this Roman government. They killed him and they made him a saint. This is how they roll. So, of course, you move along and you see that these people who call themselves Jews now are really the synagogue of Satan. If you go to Revelations, we see that they usurped. They got into the church and then they stole our birthright because they called these guys back then were really Israelites. The Americans, they were Israelites, but they didn't call themselves Jews. See, they practiced how they anointed their dead, how they dealt with adultery. There's a 23-point argument by James Adair out of the House of Fitzgerald called the American Indian. And that's been the basis for why you see Israel today. We call it, is it real? Is it real? Because during the 48, when 48 happened, they had to decide where they was going to put it, Israel. But these
48 what?
Jews,
1948? I'm sorry,
1948.
yeah, these so-called Jews co-opted our identity, and then they pushed the white Jesus on people. And then you get to the 1800s, and even in the 20th century, Black folks had to be baptized under the Arch Street Bridge in DC up until the 20th century. So what I'm saying is, sorry.
Go. I mean to interrupt you. So during that time, 1948, you really talking about the creation of Israel and tied to Zionism?
That's right. Yep.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It was birthed in this country. They created out of the book of Revelations. It was called the Church of Philadelphia. It won God's favor. It was one of the 7 churches that won the favor of God. And with these Rosa Cross dumbs came in and they said, we're going to usurp God. We're going to trick him. We're going to birth Philadelphia. They named an actual place called Philadelphia because these founding fathers knew that the people in this hemisphere, in this continent, called Black people, were practicing what they saw their folks were co-opting in Europe. Because the Roman government, they didn't give a shit what religion you was. Their God was the Zeus. They made sure that, hey, you can practice what you want, but you got to believe what we say you believe. Because they couldn't keep fighting these people. They had to get along. So right now we're in Rome. And so anytime you go into any of these churches, I look at most of the preachers are flunkies for the white man. They all have to keep us on a plantation in a mindset where we're never liberated. And our potential, we must always look at holistically. What's your position in this life and what's your potential? And anything we touch, we have to convert it to liberation. And when you look at the mind fuck that they do to people on this planet, and especially in the Black community, we got more churches on every block, yet you don't see nothing improved, especially in Baltimore. So we are seeing that just like in the days of slavery, the preachers, or the one that could, the middleman was that preacher. He kept the slaves in line. You go to this dumb museum here, not I say dumb, but this museum in DC called the Bible Museum. They got a Bible museum. And in one of the Bibles, the slave Bible, Exodus was missing. So they had to dumb us down. And they still dumb us down. Now, Pastor Charles here, he had me crying at one of a homegoing service because he wasn't talking the woo-woo talk. He was saying, hey, some of he gonna say woo-woo talk, but for the most part, he was trying to teach people how to look inside themselves, have some introspection, because when we talk about language, we have to look at what language means. And I was talking to Brother Shaka this morning that Noam Chomsky out of MIT said language isn't to communicate with each other. Language is to have introspection and hear your thoughts, because you're talking to yourself all the time. You know, so you say, man, I made my wife angry this morning, or I forgot to take the trash out. You're talking to yourself. So that's introspection. So you got to look inside yourself and forgive yourself in order to love your neighbor. So all religions, I don't care what they say, all of them, their whole purpose is to tell you how to treat your neighbor. And that's what Charles started with. What's the framework of this religion? There has to be rules on how people get along with each other. And that's it. So the main thing is what we're not seeing in our community, especially Black folk, is that we don't have solutions to get out of our predicament, out of the ghettos. You know, they have to, and if you go back, and I remember the story out of the book called The Choice by Samuel Yet. The Nation of Islam went to Santa Clara, Alabama to start their own farm. Well, the Europeans didn't like it. They sued them in court several times, saying they acquired this land by stealing it, by theft or fraud. Well, came back, they won, and then they made a requirement saying that you can't live in this town if you're Muslim. You have to register with the state. This is 1972. So white folks had to they registered. Still, they can operate their farm, but the white folks wasn't happy. They killed their livestock with, we think, cyanide. So the purpose of that was, y'all can't be self-sufficient. You got to continue to buy alligator shoes. As long as Black folks are dancing and singing "We Shall Overcome," when we should be saying 2, 4, 6, 8, let's make amends and separate, they don't want you to separate. They need you to keep making money for them. And I've been in business a long time. I've dealt with the Arabs, I've dealt with the Jews, and I know that they ain't our friend. The only reason why they call you Victor, my man, is because I'm making cash for them. And I make a lot of money for these cats. So again, our people need to know who their friends are. It ain't the white Jesus. It ain't Ed the Wino in good times. It's you. You have to look inside yourself. And that's where God lives or is alive, if it is in you. So people know right from wrong. You don't need all this woo-woo talk. You know, what they had to do was colonize your mind, tell you that you count for naught, and you can go to certain books in the Bible. I think I'm going to say Ephesians 5 through 9. 59, there's a 5 through 9, verse 5 through 9, where they say masters must obey their slaves must obey their masters. Everything in this book is not true, but it's stuff that keep you from rising up and doing some direct action. And that's like I was listening to Dr. Shiva the other night. He talked about when they were trying to get MIT to divest in South Africa during the apartheid movement and the anti-apartheid movement in the 80s. He said they came in with all this Negro spiritual shit. And the ruling class are not afraid of that. But what he said they came out with is said, divest in apartheid and burn it, and burn, they said burn apartheid. That scared the shit out of the elite at that school. So they divested because what they said in a chant, and I didn't get it quite right, but that chant spoke to the anger and the urgency of the matter. Sort of like if you got a person that came out of World War II and you say he got PTSD, and you know, it's not it's not going to be dealt with if you say he's shell shocked. The motherfucker got shell shocked. You go, okay, we need need an intervention. We need to give this guy immediate attention. So what we saw in the 60s was Black people letting their children go on the front line while these preachers of fetish watched our children get beat, water hosed, and bit by dogs. Those children should not have been on the front line. The men should have been on the front line. So they play this game that they're out to liberate you or help you, but they don't. They keep you in the same, like King came out and said, I have a dream. Nigga, we didn't want a dream. We wanted a job. We didn't want no dream to be holding hands with our enemy. So then later he comes back, because he was a part of them. He says, I think we are integrated into a burning building. So again, he misdirected the people to integrate. And so when you look at the 70s and the 80s, the only period in time that we can talk about is the 60s. Everybody started partying and getting high and doing dumb shit all from after the 60s. No more progress. It was just downhill from there. And now we've become a permanent underclass because what we see in these books do not convert us to liberators. We have to liberate our people. We have to be out of this shit. And the nigga Bible, he got caught when he came out with this book. Every preacher and teacher in LA wanted him dead, to the point, even in Jet magazine in 1967, when he came out with this book, he said he had to get a gun permit and he had to have security. And I've mentioned this book to some preachers. They say, oh, that's blasphemy, that's blasphemy. The Bible, this Bible only teaches you how to survive in your enemy's territory. It teaches you how to think for yourself. That's what Martin Luther King, Malcolm X kept saying. You got to question everything and question everyone, not accept what these cats are saying, because you're practicing this. If your religion ain't liberating you, then you don't need it. If it ain't organizing you, like we saw with the Nation of Islam in St. Clair, Alabama, when they got organized and they were being self-sufficient, they destroyed them. So any of these clowns, like this one guy that's online, I see of this, I don't know, Judaic bullshit that he comes on, Pastor Dow, that son of a gun. I see how he said, I'm in an undisclosed location and all this kind of woo-woo. I'm like, dude, I work in NASA. I know what kind of technology exists above and below. But for you to be what you're doing is by the permission of the man that run America. You can't sell your ass on the street in this country without their permission. So if you are doing the work like these guys are doing, they are exploiters, period. And we have to abandon that shit. And like the nigga Bible say, after Islam, the Judaism, and the Christianity, and seek a God that liberates us, that tells us that we can say, forgive me, God, I fucked up, boom, boom, boom. And you go and do your own and do what's right for your community. Because otherwise, you're just a slave. You can't never liberate yourself. So all these religions are in that frame, that way. But I agree with you, sir, that we have to have a framework that we have to know how to treat one another. That's all religion is to me, nothing else. But I'm looking for solutions. I'm looking for a solution why Ray, man, nay, got to be that crime on the street is the reward. Our children should be playing with life and not with death. And these preachers give crap to that. They don't liberate our people. And I'm gonna close with this.
Okay, Brother Vic, Brother Charles, we got a question in the chat. We must look at the doctrine of discovery, which consists of Dom, Diverse, Romanus, Pontifex, Intercateria. Brother India or brother sister India 917, can you please explain that in the chat? You know, what's the question that you're trying to ask? Is it a question or a comment?
Well, while they're explaining, I'd like to make I mean, there's a lot that Elder Booth said that, I think we could spend another 2 shows, just addressing all of the variety of things, because basically in his which I think was an extremely he touched on so many things that we could we could go to each one of them and deal with them piece by piece. Um, and I'm hopeful that, at some point, and I'm not sure, what the forum, the platform, or whatever, we'll be able to begin to address those things. Because see, you can't be afraid to address any of these things. You know, m- um, my parents did the best they could to raise me based on what they were given, but what they gave me the most, and my grandparents and my aunt and this group of elders that raised me, they gave me a passion to seek, to asking it shall be given, seeking you shall find, knocking the door shall be open unto you. So they gave me that passion, and to continue to pursue the things of truth. You have to get back to origins. So globally, based on what our brother said, is I'm framing it from the standpoint of we've got to be building something that's for the good. We're talking about politics and religion. So true religion is going to set a fire under the politics that come out of that morality, so that now the true politic will begin to engage in something that is not partisan, but because that partisanism would conflict with that spiritual foundation that's good. What? What should be that? What should be that religious power or that energy behind it? That now the people that are moving from that are now operating for the community in a political scenario for the betterment of the community. It should be a practice of serving. Serving. He that shall be the greatest among you shall be the servant of them all. So the things that are of power in our community and the politics behind that should be something that serves everyone, and serving them in a just way, and serving them in a caring way, or caring for the politics behind it should care for the entire community or the entire assembly. So if the assembling of people is one that is being served, and being served with care, and being served justly, that community is going to get a better result. Then the politics from that religion have to work for a common good, and then the social justice must come out of that. That is based on more of a spiritual foundation that then governs the morality. So what I'm trying to say in a framework is that the religion that should be, and what I'm saying, we should be able to look at it. We know that it's the opposite of that that's driving the car right now.
Okay,
Can
brother
I
Christian Witt, give me 1 second, brother Shaka. Brother Christian Witt said, they don't take up offerings on Sundays for the homeless. Most offerings is for the building fund and the sick and shut in. Nowadays, mega churches are big fashion shows, and the light is mostly celebrities. Go ahead, brother Shaka. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay, brother. Just wanted to first of all thank those brothers dearly and greatly for their divine insight and perspectives and their portions of understanding in terms of the politics of religion. Well, when we actually dissected, politics, which the Greek term is politica, meaning affairs of the city, um, came and kind of interceded religion, because you have religion, which is a format that has nothing to do with spirituality, And once the politics interjected into religion, that's when the agendas were placed in, even in terms of the scriptures, which were designed and set up, for the purposes of social control and social order, which was very, very unnecessary in ancient times. And so, you know, as a result of that, you know, the spiritual concept and the spiritual um, innate energy in us, based on these books, we were instructed to delete what goes on and the divine that exists within you, because we were told that didn't exist within us. And so as a result of that, we began to follow a particular doctrine, which was politically once again politically injected as well as infected to lead to where we're at today. Because once again, you have religiosity. That's what you practice under of a spiritual grounding. Then you have
Okay, Shaka, religiosity. Okay.
yeah. Then you have spirituality, which is the understanding and internalization of the spirit. Then you have religion. Religion is no more than a format, and this is why, you know, you had George Bush and these other colonizers push this church and state stuff. This is why um, politics and religion go hand in hand. It has nothing to do with spirituality. And like Victor Booth was saying, that the practice of our spirituality in terms of our action, that's paramount in terms of what is needed and being solution oriented. Because when you know, this is why a lot of these churches have converted to 501c3s. They don't have to pay taxes and things of that nature, as long as they follow a political agenda. In most churches that you go into today, it's three things that is required: that you follow their political agenda, whatever the tempo is in terms of our health and our future, we have to follow that, as well as pay tithe. You paying tithes. And in other words, within the last 5 years, it was paying tithes, taking the jab, paying tithes, taking the jab, and vote Democrat. This is what the majority of the churches in our communities push. And, you know, and a lot of times we get spirituality and religion confused. This is what brings the energy of docility within the minds and hearts of our people, you know, and who we call the lost sheep. And so then with the political agenda, you have those who understand that and take oaths to push these agendas and to give out false information and false hope, you know, to mentally, spiritually, and emotionally give our people, especially spiritual paralysis, which doesn't allow our people to actually think for themselves. It teaches us not to look within, that the Most High and the supreme energy and the divine doesn't exist within us, that we've been trained to go outside of us to look for and work through a deity that we've never physically have laid eyes on for strength, salvation, and an understanding of what's going on inside of us. So with that spiritual paralysis that sits in, it doesn't even allow the majority of our people to even do any research and the things that they and the doctrines that they push. Now you got exceptional, you have brothers like Minister Sullivan and others whose agenda, their platforms, their sermons, and their deliveries doesn't include the political construct. It talks about the spiritual growth and development and the spiritual incline that is needed for us to develop a love for self and to develop self-forgiveness, so we're able to see our brothers and sisters as a reflection of the Most High in physical form. And that will entail us to provide that love within our family structure, within our community, within our circles, and bring cohesiveness among those who have a complete understanding of, their spirituality. And it's, and these books were written, and it became a challenge because it like Minister Sullivan said, we could do a 8 to 12 part series on this, and it goes all the way back to, how the Vatican, the Pope, Prince Hall Masons, Scottish Rite, York Rite, Rosicrucians, and other so-called secret societies that have infiltrated these doctrines, because the doctrines that our people study by now is not the doctrines or the agendas and the teachings that were done in ancient Kemet, and even before ancient Kemet, because before all of this even took place, there weren't any books. So what was the spiritual construct, and how were we functioning in a society where we were extremely prosperous and being the strongest kingdom on the planet at the time without these books? This is why I say the spirituality is something that's innate in us, but we've been told we don't have the power to tap into it. And so we look for other avenues. And that goes back to what Minister Sullivan was saying. This is how we were brought up, because our parents didn't know any better. Their parents didn't know any better. Their parents couldn't read. You know what I'm saying? So this is the purpose for this gathering today, that as a result and remembrance and honor of our ancestors, that we have come to the point in this day and time and age down to this minute that we have become on code. We beginning to debunk a lot of things. We begin to unravel and strip a lot of the isms and schisms that has brought spiritual paralysis to us. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to ward off these shackles of religion. And now it's to the point that,
Brother Shot,
yes.
Hey, Ali want to explain what he meant by the first comment he made. I'm gonna read it. Okay. He said, the doctrine of discovery is a religious concept from the 15th century that granted European Christians to claim the right to colonize non-Christian lands, etc., American, and to subjugate their people. Yeah, so he broke down. Let me give a shout out to all the people that's on the feed, because everybody commenting. We got the Sister Netta Bees, the brother Bernard Expressions. We got the brother Wilbur, my Batman 2005, our brother Tex Johnson, our brother Christopher D. Witt. We got the sister Valerie Johnson, brother Ali, Isaiah On Guard, Netta Bees, and okay. These are the people, okay. And the sister Robert Bevan, can't forget about our sister Robert Bevan. Thank y'all for tuning in, and also hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the show, subscribe to the show. That's it.
Hey, let me say this about religion before we proceed on with this. And I know it may sound a little redundant because Shaka did cover a vast amount of tribe as far as religion is concerned. But it says religion is a complex system of beliefs, practices, and morals, and relates to human beings to what they consider holy or sacred or divine. So now we know that the scriptures or the holy book, and I'm not trying to down anyone's religion, whatever you believe, that's what you believe. But if it's so complex, Why is there so much distortion about it? I mean, we want to make it, like Charles said, to fit it in a frame, or we frame it to have an understanding of it. But if religion is complex, how can you have an understanding?
Well,
Correct.
can I say something?
That's what I'm trying to understand.
Sure.
Because the doctrines. No, hold on,
No,
Charles.
go ahead.
Now,
No, I thought you were finished. I'm sorry.
Now the doctrines that they tell us about. Now, and I was telling Shock, I was reading a little bit of it today. Now, and even when they tell you about the Nile River and the Euphrates rivers and the Pine River and the Gorn River, do you know that they said though that they have no evidence of those rivers?
They don't have no evidence of those rivers because, one, they changed the maps, and two, during the times of the Kemites or the Kemetu-Uz, those rivers were called different names. So as people start ruling and taking over Kemet, because you have to look at Kemet from the highest perspective. Pharaoh was a title, so then you start getting European pharaohs and Roman pharaohs, who are actually conquering the place they come from us, because we are the first. You know what I'm saying? We are the first because it's in our DNA, and we're the first. We're the first learners, also the first teachers of nature. So that's where that comes from.
May I say something else?
They still haven't given evidence to why the rivers aren't there and why they named differently.
Because
did they ever
exist? The history has been colonized, right? So
yeah,
when you look at religion is born out of cultures. You got different ones.
Right.
The Davidians had something. This culture, but the framework should be: is it going to help us? Is it going to help if we use this framework? Is it to help us see things as they are? Mm-hmm. And I think when you look at like Messy Jesse or Jesse Jackson, he ran for president. So if he's going to be like Minister Charles, right? He can't be a minister no more, because when politics, you're in a compromising position. You're always in. So you can't get the spirit. God can't speak to you because you ain't represent the laws of God. You ain't doing what your purpose is.
Right.
So again, and I was talking to Charles about this back, and Shaka, I guess he was on the call. I said, if we did a STEM program, we can do a STEM program where Charles can minister to folks about how they heal themselves. So that's part of what his message has been, is to have people say, you can't be a neighbor, you love me, unless you don't love yourself. So most of our people got a problem with loving themselves because they've already been misguided in belief. You know what I mean? So he's the only minister I've seen where he says, hey, you gotta, he's like a psychologist. I gotta see how I can get you to, when you look at yourself and face you. Because once you do that, then you heal a lot of you, and then you could then love your neighbor as thyself. And that healing starts at that point. I think that's part of the framework. That's an element in that framework. How we treat each other, that's the bottom line, right? That's part of it. But when we look at like how the condition of our people, if most of these ministers aren't doing the same thing as Minister Charles has said, then you got to throw them away, because we got to look at our potential, right? We got to look at our potential, and we got to look at what we can do with that potential. And that potential is we have to first free the mind. We got to deal with the spiritual side, the politics. You got politics in religion, you got politics in science, you got politics in math, and health. Politics is there because, like you said, Shaka, it was the black preacher who got a kickback and said, line up, I got all these people in my church to get a jab. Now, Minister Sullivan ain't do that. He didn't get his people to line up for some pharmakia because he knows that the book still talks against this, these poisons that they put in the arms of our people. But a lot of our people were tempted by these people these Romans that run the planet. Because America is the Roman Empire, period. It is Babylon. You have Babylon, Greece, Rome, and now America. This is where we at right now. So they're not going to give you anything that's going to get you free from paying taxes, from, dividing your home between you and your woman and your child. This is what we as men fight every day. So the religious system that we need to say, so you know what, I'm gonna abandon this shit because it doesn't teach me to have introspection, which Charles was talking about at Brenda's homegoing. That's why I had tears in my eyes, because I said, okay, this is what I work on when I'm with the True Freedom Help Movement with Dr. Shiva, because our message is to save yourself. There's no Jesus coming to save you people, because it's not happening. You have to seek inside you is where God is either alive or dead. Look where you were told not to look. You've been told to look up there, God, the supreme architect.
No,
The Masons talk
book
about.
says that differently.
Yeah.
Hate to interject, but the book says that differently. It says stop looking to the heavens because no one's coming.
Exactly. So that's where it is. It's in us.
And not to cut you off, and excuse me, Vic, but it also says this: in the beginning, it said, "Let us make man in our image." And if you're in the image of God, it's incarnated in you. You know what to look for. The laws, the tenets are there in you. So that's how you learn to respect your brother. That's how you learn to love your brother.
Right.
That's how you learn to love your child. That's how you learn to love your mother and father. It's incarnated in you, as Shaka brought out earlier.
Right.
So when we start looking outside of ourselves, that's where the problems begin.
But see, here's the thing, Vic, Gerald. Here's the scenario. So guys, this is so broad. I can't even begin. That right now we've got about. So in my mind, the first number was 26, and Vic, I'm always doing the geometry, that math. And then the next number was 100. We've got about 100 different subtopics, between 26 and 100 different subtopics that we're dealing with here. And the only way we kind of get to it is if we at some point address each one. And there is, a chronological way we could do this, but there is an essence. When he was talking about the beginning, the first, if you in that original Hebrew, the first four words are Bereshit bara Elohim et. And there's numbers in there. There's everything that you could imagine in these first four words. There's something there. So now I'm coming back to my point. Gerald was saying, well, the thing that's in us. But if it says, but the God of this world hath blinded their mind's eye, not your eyes, your mind's eye. In other words, I don't care what you see with your eyes. I want to blind your mind so that you don't even understand, can't figure out what you're seeing. So the reason that we're in the condition that we're in is because our minds have been, as we talked about, co-opted. So we're talking about politics and religion, or as I said, the religion of politics. So what I'm trying to say is I'm not dealing with the physical politics. I'm dealing with the thing that politics should be. In other words, and religion just simply means the thing it's the mechanism of your spiritual practice. See, we have to begin to get into words. We need to get into etymology. Everything has a Bereshit, an origin, a genesis. And the first letter of the Tanakh, or what people call the Bible, is the Hebrew letter Bet. So it's about building the house. So each one of us is a house. So if we're trying to deal with the condition that we're in and what the church has done to us specifically, the religion that has caused the policy, we're talking about the spiritualness that we should be practicing religiously should be driving what happens in the larger community. So now we need to come to understand that we've been blinded, and now we need to just make a decision. The people in darkness have seen light to see light. And if we come to the common denominator, Gerald said, well, it's in us, but if I'm so blind, I can't see it. The reason that it's happening in our community is because all that's happening in our community is what we're practicing at home. The husbands are not being husbands, the wives are not being wives, the fathers are not being fathers, the mothers are not being mothers, because we don't understand what comes with those words and the power behind them. So all we're getting out there is what we practice at home, and we carry this home spirituality and energy out into the world. The day that we turn to Shuva, a turn a different way, the day that we now say unequivocally whatever, not only am I asking to be forgiven for not necessarily manifesting what I should, but I'm going to believe that the forgiveness is there, and now I'm going to go back and seek origins. And when I go back and seek origins, I have to first, before I go out and tell a brother about this, before I tell a sister about that, before I start talking, excuse me, guys, before I start talking Marcus Garvey or Malcolm X, or we could go on and on, because see, I've studied lots and lots and lots of stuff, but the transitional power comes when the thing that I do with my mother at home, I begin to do with all the mothers in the community. When I begin to look at the situation and say, okay, I'm going to practice something at home, I'm going to start showing care for myself, I'm going to start reading and studying for real at home, and expressing that. In other words, I'm going to go back and I'm going to start cleaning up my act. When I start cleaning up my act, when I start forgiving myself for what I did, if I sold drugs, if I got arrested, if I was hoeing or whatever, well, guess what? I used to hold them, but now I don't hold them. I respect them. And I'm forgiving myself for what I did. But now moving forward, the reason that we continue to allow certain circumstance to occur is because we have inculcated that. And now that has become the braces for what we practice at home. All we're doing is taking it out into the street. So consequently, we got to come back to the lowest common denominator and start all over. What is going to be best? He that ruleth over men must be just. I got to be just to myself. I got to understand what is best for me, what is healthiest for me, and then I got to let that manifest or permeate in every aspect of my existence, as I am a father, as I am a husband, as I manage my finances. The spirituality that drives me say, I'm going to spend that money on my kids getting tutoring rather than a BMW or rather than a this thing or that thing.
But what if your preacher tell you to go get a shot?
Okay, hold on. So I'm coming back to that.
Right?
So
When you look at,
coming back to that.
when you understand
yeah,
the
so
framework.
Hold on, real quick. I just want to say the framework for this has to be being able to go in and to seek knowledge from an origin base, connect with other people that are origin based driven, and begin to rebuild again the foundation that is solid and strong as it relates to the simplest of things. And you build things line upon line, precept upon precept. We trying to take over the world. We haven't even taken over our own houses. We trying to take over our communities. We haven't even taken over our own families.
Yeah, but Charles,
so what I'm saying is this is what's driving the religion that's driving the politics.
Okay, Charles, go ahead, that's brother. A little repetitious about what I just was saying earlier. That's a belief.
I don't think so.
That's a belief. That's a belief.
I don't think so.
We can't go on. We cannot.
I don't think so. We're going to have to agree to disagree on that.
We can't assume and presume that everybody's household is the same. You could teach your kids every principle, every practice, every whatever. If they decide that they're going to do something different, they're going to do something different.
Just like the same way you're saying that, though, that doesn't have to be the case.
Charles, hold on, Charles. The only thing I'm saying is this: practice does not necessitate, even when you playing a game, that you're gonna be fluent or you're gonna be the best at what you possibly can be. You can go out there and trip up and fall and break a leg and never be able to participate at all. So when you're saying, when I said that religion is complex, I was saying that it is, because no matter what tenet, no matter what indoctrination, no matter what precepts you learn, you still have to practice them on everyday basis. A lot of people have, Charles, hold on.
No, I said absolutely. I was in agreement with you.
A lot of people have been inculcated with that type of same thing. It's been vested in them. But guess what? It's a whole lot of us that's been in religion. It's a whole lot of us that's been in nice household. It's a whole lot of us that's been reared in those particular areas. But guess what? You all fall down. That's what they call the power of prayer, to pray for forgiveness.
Well, we talk about religion and
go ahead.
And so talking about religion and politics, and that's one of the key things that, you know, the politics has us, you know, stuck, you know, absolutely, where we don't tap into our spirituality, you know, and in order, you know, because and I agree with Gerald, everybody has their own personal journey. Everybody has a particular way on how to navigate themselves through this journey. Everybody's situation is different, but the overall, and I agree with Charles on this, but the overall solution is the family dynamics. Now, you know, what works in my house may not work in Gerald's house. You know what I'm saying? Is you know, and what works in Knowledge house may not work in Ken's house. What works in Vic's home may not work in mine. So we have to have, and this is the result. This is a clear indication and proof of the result of the colonized mind based on these doctrines. Because what's the foundation for religion is to implant fear in the hearts and minds of our people, no matter what way we cut it up. It is designed, it was originally designed to put fear in the hearts and minds of our people, because once again, religiosity, spirituality, and straight religion are three different things. Because what you practice, you may go to church and you go through the ritualistic process through religion, which religion is the Latin word for relinking. But your spirituality is what your spirituality is what you your actions. That's your actions, because you can go to church, you can go to the mosque, you can go to the temple or synagogue, you can bump your head 5 or 6 times a day, and you can follow that particular ritual, because it is a ritual. Tithing is a ritual. You know, standing up for the pastor when he walks in is a ritual. You know, and these things has implanted fear in the hearts of our people. Once again, you can go to church Sunday, you know, and you got this forgiveness and turn the other cheek syndrome and all this. But if somebody's coming through your window, get ready to, in the middle of the night, get ready to violate your children or bring harm to you, you know, I'm quite sure anybody with common sense is not going to pick up, you know, Romans 13, you know, unless it's a revolver. You know what I'm saying? So what we practice, you know, and what's been indoctrinated in us. This is why a lot of our people today are afraid to step out of the box of religion, because we've been trained that about this blasphemy and about this going to hell and all of this stuff and all the things that coincide with that. Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, Freddy Krueger, all these things that coincide with that, to reinforce our fear, to keep us in these particular in this particular framework of fear. And so our spirituality, you know, there are 6 divine spirits that have met tonight on this live. 6 divine spirits, you know, and I see, including myself, 6 gods. 6 gods. You know, there's a divine energy, and then there's a God that you see in the mirror each and every day. But once again, our people have been told that we don't have that power. Our people have been told that we don't possess any type of spiritual power, but that we're not the original people. We're not the manifestations and the reflection of the Most High in physical form. We've been told That's not us. We've been told to look outside of ourselves. This is where all this emotional trauma and all this these insecurities and all of these other belief systems. Belief just means
lie.
That belief just means you're going along with it, but it's a strong possibility that it's not true because you have no proof of it. Right. You know, and this is why I say we have to know who we are. You know,
yeah.
You gotta know. You gotta know your purpose
on this live.
Right.
These are men on this live, men, and we're supposed to have differences of opinion because we had it's 6 different households. When we cut this live off, there's 6 different behaviors that have to take place to continue to bring order and structure in our homes. We can't, no one person's theory of how my house is supposed to be ran won't work for me. I can take some hints from it. I can take some pointers from it and apply it into how I conduct myself in my, not just in the house, in my affairs, in public, because sometimes we can be 4 or 5 different people, and that confuses us too.
And let me say this, like
before you say that, Vic,
sorry.
Before you say that, Vic, we're gonna after you say that, go ahead and get your final remarks. We're gonna go ahead and end the show, but go ahead, Brother Vic.
So Dick Gregory said that what they did to our people during our enslavement, we don't know. They jacked us up, so we can't really fix ourselves. But I get what Charles is saying is that he created a framework in which to guide his family to where they are today. He had to have he got to the root of some of his challenges as an individual, had to resolve that. Then he had to understand the language that he's speaking, the vernacular, break it down, and then be able to teach that to his offspring. I get that. Right. And he's not saying I'm a victim and I'm not blaming nobody. But I got to say that when you look at what Dick Gregory said, that these Europeans that colonized our history, bastardized our religion, they've done a lot of harm. So we can't be blaming nobody. What I'm saying is essentially is abandoning their shit. Right? We have to think critically. We can't play victim because of slavery. We can't say I'm gonna blame you for what happened to me. And I think when we see we shall overcome, they had us thinking that we got to wait for that chariot to swing low to liberate. We got to die to be free.
Nah.
Right? So what I'm saying is that I agree that we have a duty to say that what they did to us, we got to find a way to get out of this. And when we have people that demonstrated that, clearly did do it, they were shut and crushed. When you see the movie that James Earl Jones was in with Diane Carroll, what was that film? Claudine. Yeah. And the challenge that this family had, they tried to have a framework, Charles, right? They had the man that loved this woman who was out of wedlock, had all these children. He wanted to be that man like you. He loved these children that wasn't from his loins. He came in to say, I will support this family. So they had to go to the state. Here's where the white God is, the white Jesus. Go to the state and hey, we need a little aid. So they said, black man, you can't be in that family raising those children with that woman unless you give up your salary. We want all of y'all we want our foot on your neck. And that's what I saw in that film. And I think that when you look at white violence on black people, we always keep looking at, what I'm hearing is like when you say, we have to do what's in our family, but still the real problem is not just us on these, how you talked about just now. We have to look at who put us in this state, because it's not your natural way, as you indicated, to see your family suffer, right? You had to say, I'm going to teach my son how to tie his shoe and clean his room and brush his teeth and take care of his ass so that he can be somebody productive. But a lot of people are not able to do that, because when you see a system that took black men in the 70s and made our labor obsolete and brought in these other people, they had our wives and women marry the state. That's what they do. They can't have that spirit, that nigga in you that's fighting for your kids every day. I appreciate what you're talking about, but they got to crush that, because you are doing something that's a poison in the soup. You are doing something constructive, not destructive. And what they like to see is us to be destructive. They like to see that we are not doing the right by our children. And so they can post that shit on the thing. But it's statistically known that black men care more about their children than any other man on this planet.
Right, right, right.
But they have to give you
That's right.
$15 an hour or $14 an hour, and you can't raise a family on that shit. That's why the jails are filled with these clowns. And when you look at an educational system that don't teach you Latin so you can understand what the word bio means, they don't teach you that. They keep you in a state of, once you graduate, you sit on a couch, and then the only thing you got as an option with no skills is to join the military, because that's what the British Empire did. Took the poor whites, put red coats on them, and put them to the front line. And that's their model. So I say tonight that we have to abandon these religious systems that have enslaved us. You have to say, you know what, this stuff is not working, because I live in a fear state. That's why they were able to get everybody to go and take the jab. Do all this stuff at the hands of these black fucking nasty preachers that told our people that any weapon against us will not stand. That's bullshit, because the weapon is destroying our families. I lost an uncle, a cousin, another cousin. I mean, it's mounting up in the millions right now, because they use their politics. They took the state stuff and they made black preachers push out the gays, or say, oh, you can't get money from it if you don't get rid of the gays. Now gay is cool because the Pope Francis said it was okay. They flipped the script over and over again. So our people are constantly having all these inputs in their head, and they have to figure out, the controller has to figure out what's right, what's real, what's true. And if you've been given a bad education, then you ain't gonna have no liberation.
That's for sure.
Brothers, go ahead. Go ahead, get your.
God hasn't given us a spirit of fear.
Go ahead, my brothers. You'll go ahead and give your final remarks. Whoever wants to go next.
Well, I'd like to say that, it's one of the things that I live by. It's the spiritual force that drives my religion says God has not given me a spirit of fear, but power and love and a sound mind. And so, that's what I seek, at every turn. And I try to learn things and study things, if I even have to, down letter by letter, word by word, book by book, circumstance by circumstance, and try to learn context around things. And I try to go back to get origin in as much as I can, because the whole thing to me is about building the house that we are individually, and then the house that is connected to us, man and woman, child, father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, or whatever. And those things that are driven, and I'm only using the term religion because, of course, the religion is what you practice repetitiously. You can do anything religiously, but it is driven by a morality, a spirituality that says we must make sure that all are well, and we should shake off the shackles of anything that's crap. Shake it off. And so I believe that as we do this, that we will be able to, it says, by the renewing of our mind, we're going to be transformed. And when we can come into unity and take care of each other just in the simplicity of little by little, I guarantee you we're going to get the whole in due season, if we don't quit, or if we faint not, as it says.
All right, Brother Shaka.
Yes, once again, it was a very, very powerful, informative, educational build among great men tonight. My final thoughts are that, I think that the religion itself should be annihilated for the purpose of us to be able to tap into our own divine energies. And that's not to say that any of these books uh, are not or cannot be helpful and useful in your journey here. But when you look at it as a whole, and a lot of these scriptures speak on it, that if we're made in the image and likeness of the divine, then we are the book. Then we become that book. And the walk is determined on your spiritual incline. And this is what consists of the greatness in us. This is why I always say at the end of my shows to walk in your own greatness, because the personal relationship you have with the universe and the divine energies, as well as your ancestors, who we've also been told that making the connection with those that we personally knew who are ancestors now, that's supposed to be some type of curse or sin or blasphemy to tap into the people that helped us get to where we're at. And just because they moved on, and I'm not talking about up in the air, around some white boys in gowns with chicken wings and hops. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the souls of our people, that still exist, and their energy that coincides with that. And this is why we're able to still communicate and listen to what they're trying to tell us. And so when we talk about religion, because it's so politically based now, it's so politically based, and it has paralyzed and implanted our people that have been entrenched and engulfed with fear, even though they know a lot of things don't make sense, but there are a lot of things that do make sense, that we need to make applicable in our journeys. And so, once again, we all have our own individual journeys. We all have to answer to ourselves. We all have to answer to a divine source once this journey is completed. You know what I'm saying? So we have to take the time and then learn from one another, celebrate each other's accomplishments and their victories and what they've done, to raise awareness and to raise not just raising families, your impact in the community, your impact among your people, the power that you have, that you actually have to tap into, because a lot of us don't know how powerful we are, and we've been told that we don't have that power once again. So we kind of extinguish our own divine fire that's in us based on how we've been indoctrinated and trained. So once again, this should become, hopefully we can make a compilation and a series, maybe a 3 or 4 part series out of this, because there's so much divine genius, divine intelligence on this show, and each and every one of you are solid men. Okay. Mean a lot. So that's it for me.
All right, go ahead, Brother Jeremy.
Well, the only thing I wanted to say is that I thank you two brothers, Vic and Charles, and the other brothers that's on here.
Nice, man.
I really appreciate your ideology. It was welcome. It was eloquently put. It was explained succinctly, and we hope that we can, as Shaka said, do this another time to make it a 3-4 part tour. Because as you said, Charles, there's a lot to cover. There's a lot to cover, and chronologically, as you said it, and we're gonna do it sequentially. All right. So I do appreciate you, brothers, and the guys that's on here.
Yes, sir.
Bless. Go ahead, Brother Ken.
Yeah, I want to say, man, thank you to Brother Vic, Brother Charles, man. Anytime y'all want to come back, come on back, man. home. You know what I'm saying? And I also appreciate to the brothers and sisters that continue to follow my YouTube channel, Vocal Dialect. You know, y'all made a lot of comments tonight. We didn't read them, but we see them. Appreciate y'all. You know, hey, we just need to love each other, man. You know,
Amen.
I'm more into spirituality. I'm not a religion person. But, you know, we just need to love each other, man. You know?
That's right.
That's the whole thing of religion.
Yeah, because it's about
the whole thing.
Yeah. You know, y'all can follow Vocal Dialect on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook as well. Also, you know, if you haven't followed the brother T. Shaka Sankofa, he come on in the evening times, you know, between 7:30 and 5:30 p.m. So go check out the General T. Shaka Sankofa. And when the next time you coming on, General?
Tomorrow night, live and uncensored.
Live and uncut. That's all I got.
Right. I have a lot to say. I'm not gonna say it, but it was a lot said, and a lot of ground to carry. If we do make this a series, we need to start from time period to time period, which would be very essential, and not just that, going through the history in a very peculiar way. I know what I have learned from scriptural is iron sharpen iron, so does men sharpen men. We're here to sharpen each other up to make us better so we can know how to handle certain situations. If a situation has come about and you think the way that Brother Charles handled it, then of course we should know our brother Charles and go the way that he will go to handle the situation. And anything we do, as far as in the corporation of the United States, we have to be very strategic.
Amen.
So politics and religion, they go hand in hand. You know, religion being a belief and politics being the control of it. I hate to say it. Do we need to get away from it? In some perspective, we do, because it's still control. It's still having some type of authoritarian control over us, the people and the masses. But I will say this: the first, I wouldn't say religion, but spirituality was us studying nature and us being students of nature. But this has been another good, great episode, Vocal Dialect Podcast. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Knowledge Born 7. My brother Ken Waddle Moore. My good brother, General Shaka Sankofa, Street Law Soldiers. My brother Gerald, my good brother Gerald, from the Street Law Soldiers. Of course, always an honor and a pleasure to have Brother Charles and Brother Vic here. They brought a lot of things to unpack and a lot of things for you to look up and a lot of things for you to actually examine. Listen to the show, have an unbiased opinion about it, take some notes, and then we'll see you guys next time. I think we might do a part 2. Peace and power, peace and light. We love you guys, and we thank you guys for tuning in. Peace.
Blessings.
Thank you. Excellent.